insofar as I've had some more consistency with the like amount of time that I've been able to pray, I would say that I've been experiencing consolation. And to your point that you were trying to get at before, I have recognized that it has strengthened me in our ministry, right?
So we talk about desolation, and desolation, it's true, can be a sort of a strength training, but only insofar as even in times of desolation we continue to pray. And this is where it gets tricky, right? Because if we're taking consolation as God's candy, right? If we allow for that image,
as a replacement,
right, it becomes this thing that I just want to feel good when I pray, and that becomes the only reason for me to pray. And that's not the only reason for me to pray. I don't just pray because talking to God makes me feel good, nor do I approach God only because I think he's going to make me feel nice things or give me nice things. I pray because it's the thing that I need to do, and sometimes I need to do that even when it's not easy, or even when I'm not in the mood, or even when I'm tired. So the more I persevere through the times when I don't want to pray, or when I'm feeling difficult, or when things aren't going my way, the more I really dig in and can persevere in that prayer, then the more fruitful that time of desolation can be. Consolation is this thing that God gives you that's meant to carry you through, that's meant to like really be there. And that's the thing that we should pay attention to. We should kind of like lean into the consolation, because that's where we're going to find the will of God.
Okay.
I don't think that was real contrition.
No, it wasn't.
You're really sorry.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. Not only was it not real contrition about being sorry for my sarcasm toward you, it was barely attrition. That said, welcome to the tangent, Father Sam. I want to tell you something. I want to say something that I think may come as a shock to you.
Okay.
We just passed our 3-year anniversary of the tangent.
Did we really?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
No way.
Yeah.
It's been that long?
Yep. June 29th, 2022 was our first episode of the tangent. It was admittedly, it was kind of like a preview episode. I'm not sure if you remember, but we did one episode because of the...
And then we didn't do any episodes for like 3 months, right?
Because of what was happening with Roe v. Wade, and then we didn't do one until September.
So it's a technical anniversary.
Correct, yes.
It's a proof of concept anniversary.
A proof of concept anniversary, exactly.
Yeah.
Now you're picking up what I'm putting down. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I
that
like
has
that. That's
surpassed.
cool.
So we've been doing the tangent for 3 years.
I didn't get you anything.
That's okay.
I'm really sorry.
I got you a sarcastic comment about it. So which feels kind of on brand.
That's perfect. What's the 3-year anniversary gift? Isn't like the first anniversary paper?
Oh yeah, that is a thing that my wife and
it's not a thing I have to worry about often. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. Also, didn't mean to accidentally compare you to my wife there, but
it's okay.
I'll tell Renee. Let's see how she feels about it.
She's cooler. Let's start
cooler.
there.
Yeah, she's cooler than me, and my level of cool will come into this conversation later when we talk about.
I would say that
zeal.
I have a better beard than Renee does.
Yes. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't be more happy about that. Anyway, so before we get too lost in our banter here, I want to let our listeners know some of the things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about consolation and desolation, the importance of consistency in prayer. We're going to be talking about The Chosen. There will be, I guess, a spoiler insofar as there can be spoilers in The Chosen, especially as it relates to things that literally happened in the Bible, right? Like sometimes The Chosen's got like what would you call it? Like extra biblical storylines. I don't know.
The artistic interpretation.
Yes, exactly. This would not be one of those. This would be
cinematic flourishes.
Yes. If you've read the Bible, you will know this particular story. We'll be talking about zeal, and then maybe talking about Romans if we have some time. But I suppose I'll start with consolation and desolation. So now this is kind of building off of our conversation from last week. We talked about Saint Therese. We talked about Saint Maria Goretti, and we talked a lot about prayer, confidence in prayer. Now that's on my mind, right? I mentioned as well that I'm in a class called Christian Spirituality. We're discussing prayer often in this class, and so prayer is something that I've been thinking about. And consolation and desolation both play a massive role in prayer, right? And by massive role, I mean, I guess they're like kind of like the state in which you pray, right? But before I try and define them, I just wanted to say to you, will you define them, right? Can we define consolation and desolation and then talk to the need for consistency?
Yeah. Well, I think first, consolation and desolation really describe a human experience in the context of prayer that we have when we pray. And really, when we're doing anything, we're going to have certain feelings about the thing that we're doing, about the experience that we're having, or about our approach to it. There's going to be all these different feelings that are attached to it or that come from doing the thing. Sometimes my feelings are going to be joyful, happy feelings, and they come because I've done this thing or because I'm in this particular environment. Other times the feelings that I have are going to be sort of sad or difficult feelings. I might be feeling some sort of stress or distress, where the thing that I'm doing is not maybe getting where I want it to go, and so I'm feeling bad about that. So consolation and desolation just describes the fact that in any and all experiences, we have a response. There's something going on interiorly for every single human being. When we talk about consolation, what we're getting at is the idea that those good feelings that give you a sense of peace, fulfillment, happiness, joy, those feelings, that those sentiments of really, well, what does it mean to be consoled? To be consoled means to be held.
Right.
Whether I'm in a moment of particular difficulty or grief, like to be consoled in that moment means that even though there's this stuff happening either to me or this chapter of my life that I'm going through, I have the sense of really being held, being safe, being confident. So consolation is a good feeling. We want consolation.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I like that. I like that you're. Well, when we talk about it in class, we sometimes describe consolation as God's candy. Like it tastes good.
No, but see, I'm going to push back on that. I don't think it's candy, because candy's not good for you.
Sure.
Candy is a treat, but it's not good for you. Whereas consolation is actually good for us. Desolation is not God's. No, but that's the other thing. Desolation is like, because of what desolation is, we can't say that consolation is God's candy, because desolation would then be God's nasty, gross vegetables. And that's not accurate either. Desolation is that feeling of like there's a certain emptiness or a difficulty in seeing God. When we're talking about spiritual desolation, at least we're talking about like a feeling of emptiness or not being able to see God present. Desolation, we feel desolate. Like we're alone and abandoned, like nothing's there. God doesn't want us to feel that way. Now, there are moments where in his permissive will, God will allow us to experience distance from him. There's moments where in his permissive will, God will allow us to feel like a certain amount of, not God's absence, but like,
right. Well, like
we're kind of groping through the dark.
Yeah. Like he's obviously always present, right?
But desolation is something that when we become aware of it, it's actually more like a tool that the Lord can use to help us to turn back to him, to try to get close to the Lord again, to be reminded of those good things. So desolation is like sometimes something to be endured. Sometimes we have to go through the difficult thing in order to get to the joyful thing on the other side. Like if you're climbing a mountain, in order to enjoy the view from the top, you might have to suffer some aches and pains as you climb the mountain, as you climb higher and higher. You might have to break a sweat. You might have to do something difficult, but the joy and the beauty of being at the top of the mountain and seeing the beautiful view from there, that's something that's very consoling, right? So sometimes we know that we have to go through this difficulty. Other times it seems like there's just difficulty after difficulty. You ever read about Lewis and Clark's expedition?
I have not, but I know who both of those people are.
Lewis and Clark famously explore the West. Once the Louisiana Purchase has been made, they're looking for an all-water route from the Mississippi River to the Pacific, and there is no such route. But along the way they find all these things, and they're seeing all these things for the first time. They're the first of the Americans to move west and to see all of this stuff, and so they get to the Rocky Mountains. And the first thing that they see is these mountains like nothing they've ever seen before. And the Rocky Mountains they're pretty darn rocky. And like I remember driving through Kansas, and coming into Colorado and you see the mountains ahead of you. Like you see them way off in the distance. And then as you get closer and closer, suddenly these mountains, they're just enormous and they're there. Well, Lewis and Clark get to the mountains and there's this experience that they talk about of like fear almost, these enormous mountains. What are we going to do? How are we going to overcome this? And they begin the climb with their entire party. And so there they are, they're going up the mountains and it's getting to the summit or like getting to a mountain pass and feeling, okay, now we'll get over this. And as they get to that mountain pass, they just see more mountains. So this desolation of the climb and the difficulty and the thinner air and all of this stuff that they have to adjust to and what they're hoping they'll see, and they get to the other side of that pass and it's just more mountains in front of them, and they realize that the only way for them to do this is they've got to do it again. And there's a certain, like, they must have been so deflated to go through this very difficult climb on this very difficult mountain pass, and then suddenly the next thing is more of that, when they were hoping we've gotten past it and now we can keep going. So like desolation is that kind of thing,
right?
This feeling of all this stuff is going on, and now, oh no, there's more of it. It's this feeling of like, I'm not fulfilled, I'm not at peace, I'm not comfortable, I'm not really getting what I need. That's desolation.
So I like this analogy about the Rocky Mountains a lot. And the reason that I like it so much is because desolation, I'm gonna further analogize, right? Like I think that desolation can be compared to growing muscles, to working out, insofar as like, how does one gain strength? Well, one of the ways is time under tension. Right. And so because you're spending your time, like a certain amount of time under this tension, quote unquote, of desolation, like one of the byproducts of that can be an increased faith, right? You're not so reliant on feeling, which is, again, not an intrinsically bad thing, right? But rather like you have perhaps like an increased confidence. I will come to the defense of my professor in calling consolation God's candy only insofar as what he means by that is it is wrong for us to pursue God because he makes us feel good, as opposed to God for God himself. And so I didn't specify that context beforehand, but that was the context.
That's a solid distinction to make.
Yeah. And so he was saying, like, what is one of the things that desolation does? Well, we stop going to God strictly because he makes us feel good, even though it's awesome when he gives us like I would tell you right now that like I believe that I'm currently in a state of consolation insofar as it pervades my whole day. And I think that probably that's because I'm like, we talked about consistency in prayer a couple weeks ago, insofar as I've gone through like a move recently and we just had a baby, and so like prayer was inconsistent. And so insofar as some consistency has returned, right, all of a sudden I'm actually praying at a consistent rate again. So I've been experiencing consolation because of that. And to your point that you were trying to get at before, I have recognized that it has strengthened me in our ministry, right? I am in danger of what am I trying to say? I'm not trying to admit a lack of focus, but rather I've recognized an increased focus is what I mean. You know what I mean? Like
you Matt, lacking focus? No way.
But you know what I mean?
It's not possible.
And so there's something to that, which is like potentially tangential. This was one of the other things that I wanted to talk about. Didn't mention it in the intro. My bad. I recently bought a book. I have not started to read it yet. It hasn't arrived yet.
Whoa! Wait! You mean to tell me that you bought a book and you haven't started reading?
This episode full of surprises.
Again, consider me just shocked.
I know you should be. You should be. Okay, because let me tell you something. Okay, this is big. That's okay, great. This is big. But point is that the name of this book, approved by St. Pius X, apparently, is that prayer is the soul of the apostolate.
Yeah, right. Soul of the Apostolate is fantastic. It's a great book.
And so, like, I have gotten to experience
St. Pius X Yeah, St. Pius X kept that book at his bedside. That was like a
Wow,
book that he
really?
read,
No, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
with great regularity. And he considered it to be an extremely important book because you're right, at the heart of it all is prayer. So we talk about desolation,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
yeah, desolation, it's true, can be a sort of a strength training, but only insofar as even in times of desolation we continue to pray. And this is where
Hmm.
it gets tricky,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because again, if we're taking consolation as God's candy,
Hmm.
right? If we if we
Hmm.
if we allow for
As a
that image, which it's
replacement.
right, it becomes this thing that I just want to feel good when I pray, and that becomes the only reason for me to pray.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's not the only reason for me to pray.
Hmm.
I don't just pray because talking to God makes me feel good. Uh, Nor do I approach God only because I think He's going to make me feel nice things or give me nice things.
Hmm.
I pray because it's the thing that I need to do.
Hmm.
And sometimes I need to do that even when it's not easy, or even when I'm
Yeah.
not in the mood, or even when I'm tired. So the more I persevere through the times when I don't want to pray, or when I'm feeling difficult, or when things aren't going my way, the more I really dig in and can persevere in that prayer, then the more fruitful that time of desolation can
Hmm.
be.
Hmm.
Um, Another important thing. So it's Saint Ignatius of Loyola who sort of lays out these words for us,
Okay.
and he does it by reflecting on his experience when he was convalescing from being shot in the leg by a cannonball. So
Yeah,
he's yeah,
it's run of the mill, man. Like everybody,
kind of a
yeah,
big thing. Yeah,
my cannonball
he
moment.
he went off to war expecting that he would, through a heroic, noble, I mean literally being a noble person, like he
Hmm.
thought that serving in the military and then being a nobleman would be his path to great happiness and to fulfillment.
Mm.
And so he dreamed of this life in society and all these things. So he goes off to war thinking that this will be his start. This is how he'll be remembered and he'll do these heroic things. And like in his first battle, he takes a shot from a cannon and it like almost destroys his leg. They're
Yeah.
able to save his leg, but he never walked the same ever
Yeah, sure,
again after
sure.
that. And so he's convalescing in this castle because, of course, why wouldn't he? And as he's
Naturally.
convalescing and can't get up and walk around, he's got access basically to books of knight errantry and heroics and like military battles and like these romantic sort of stories, or he has the life of Christ
Hmm.
and the lives of the saints. And when he would read the stories of the knights and their battles and the military heroism and everything, he would describe feeling really good. But once he put the book down, that feeling left. The book like had him excited. This is an interesting story. I'm engaged with it, but he puts it down and it doesn't really last for him. This is like you watch a good movie and
Hmm.
the movie has you entertained and you're feeling good about it, but the feeling doesn't really last once the movie's over because you know that it's just a story.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that movie, when it comes to an end, you go back to life. You go back to the normal stuff. But when he would read the life of Christ or when he would read the lives of the saints, he said that the feeling of excitement that he was feeling engaged, just like he was when he read the fiction, when he was reading the lives of the saints, he was feeling this sense of not just excitement as he read, but it was a feeling that lasted long after he put the book to the side. And he realized because as he read about these stories, he was reading about the grace that God was giving to these saints and the ways that they were engaging in relationship, but he also knew that he was reading about something that could be his.
Mm.
And what was coming up for him was this desire. I don't just want to be a hero. I don't just want to attain military victories and accolades. He was realizing, I want what the saints have.
Mm.
And because what the saints have is not fiction, what the saints had in their lifetime is this very real experience of the living God, he said, I can have that too. And I want that.
Right.
And so the desire and the zeal, the excitement for that was staying with him longer. So he starts to write about consolation.
Hmm.
Consolation is this thing that God gives you that's meant to carry you through, that's meant to like really be there. And that's the thing that we should pay attention to. We should kind of like lean into the consolation because that's where we're going to find the will of God.
Mm.
Desolation is not so much that, well, I felt this way before and now I don't feel it and I'm sad that I don't feel it anymore. Desolation is more that much deeper feeling of like, God is not present here. And sometimes we might stay too long in a place of desolation when it's not actually where God wants us to be.
Mm.
And so Ignatius realized that when he was spending his time dreaming about going back onto the battlefield, or the dreams of position and power and wealth and prestige, all of that stuff, as nice as it might sound, was not really where God wanted him. And the reason that he wasn't feeling joy and peace or excitement or zeal, the reason that he wasn't feeling any of those normally consoling thoughts, was because that was not where God wanted him to go.
Yeah.
And so in other words, by allowing him to not feel God present, what God was doing was showing him where God really was, where God really was guiding him. And I'm sorry to not use pronouns there as I say that, but it's to really get into this is what's happening.
Yeah.
That God wants to indicate to us what we need, and he'll do that in ways that we can really experience on that very, very human level. Sometimes, Ignatius will talk about this. Sometimes God's presence is made known by a very, very clear and explicit sign. Sometimes the spiritual reality of God present is like abundantly known and knowable. And other times, like, we kind of have to go looking for it a little bit. So anyway, Ignatius of Loyola first describes these. Can I keep going with this though? Because there's more stuff.
Yeah, by all means.
This is where it gets really fun.
You have the reins, Father. I recently decided that I was not going to interrupt you when you start teaching.
Well, we'll see. I'll interrupt myself every once in a while.
Speaking of the self-control of consistency.
I'm proud of you.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Okay, go.
There's also a distinction to be made when we talk about consolation and desolation, between like spiritual consolation, spiritual desolation, and non-spiritual consolation and non-spiritual desolation. And it's important, if you're trying to figure out where is God or what is God asking me to do, to make a distinction between those things, right? Because one is not the same as the other.
Right.
I might be experiencing a non-spiritual consolation. And the non-spiritual consolation could be something as simple as I woke up and there was already coffee brewed.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have to make it myself, and it's good coffee, and I'm enjoying the coffee.
Right. This physical good.
Yeah. It's something that's nice, but it's not really God present. And I know we'll say things like, sometimes it's like you're experiencing God in this meal that you eat or something like that. Yeah, sure. But that's more of an intellectual exercise. What's really happening is, in a non-spiritual way, you're enjoying yourself and you feel good. And that's fine. It's you're allowed to feel that.
Can I ask a question of clarification? Yeah. Would this, I guess, non-spiritual consolation, aka physical consolation, I don't know if you want to say that, right? Would that apply to something like, I saw the Grand Canyon and I was moved by its beauty? Or would it only be, do you know what I mean? Because like, how many people do you know that have, as a matter of fact, I only know like one or two people who have been like, I saw the Grand Canyon and, I was moved by its beauty and I realized the beauty of God, But like, there seems to be some interplay, is my point.
Yeah, I would say I've never met somebody who went to the Grand Canyon and did not have an experience of
really, right? Fair enough.
Like something that felt spiritual, right?
Right. So how do you draw the distinction between those things?
Yeah.
Or do you have
I've never met somebody who went to the Grand Canyon and thought, I thought it'd be bigger, or I was expecting it to be more beautiful. Like I've never seen that. I've never heard of anybody doing that. Yeah. People see that and they're moved to something, and that's where like perhaps a non-spiritual consolation, traveling to a place that's like exciting and you're enthused about it, can lead to a spiritual consolation.
Right. Because I guess
these things aren't entirely divorced from one another.
Right.
No, they can very much go hand in hand.
Through your body. So like
yeah. So it's very possible to see something beautiful. The thing itself, like I can go look at a painting and it's not a religious painting. But the painting somehow moves me. There's something about this thing that really moves me. Well, the seeing the painting by itself could be a non-spiritual consolation, and then I'm just looking at this. But that non-spiritual consolation, because I'm in that place of feeling some joy or peace, or like I'm in like a state of equilibrium. Things are good for me right now. That can then lead me to, at the level of my heart, open up more. And then there's this spiritual gift that God is giving. So God is working through something that is not intrinsically spiritual,
I see,
to reach me in a way that is touching my spirituality.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So like non-spiritual consolation, it's important to just recognize, what kind of consolation is it that I'm experiencing right now? Is this something that's more from God, that's the result of prayer, that's coming out of this religious experience that I've had? I went to Mass, or I went to this conference and I was inspired by something that a speaker said, or I was doing spiritual reading and I was moved by this. I spent time in adoration and I feel this sense of peace and joy and God present with me. Or is this a form of consolation that comes from, I'm satisfied after a good meal. My favorite team just won the championship, whatever championship we're talking about. Right. Like if the Mets win the World Series, I will feel
joy.
A form of consolation that I've never experienced before.
Joy in its purest form. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but really, it will be this sense of real joy and consolation. But it's not spiritual. That's not God. Yeah. I mean, unless you think that it would only take a miracle. But whatever. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Then you have pause. I know I said I wouldn't interrupt you, but that was a good joke. I want to affirm you. That was a great joke. I
appreciate that.
All right, keep going.
We have spiritual desolation and non-spiritual desolation. So a non-spiritual desolation could be something like I'm feeling hungry, and because I'm hungry, I'm a little more irritable. I'm tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep last night. Because I didn't get a good night's sleep and I'm hungry, I'm irritated about everything that everybody does. A non-spiritual consolation could be my appointment that's scheduled for 2:00 shows up at 2:15 and I'm annoyed because they're running late and didn't tell me. A non-spiritual desolation rather could be, it could be more serious. Right? It could be I'm physically sick.
Right.
And in my illness, I'm experiencing suffering, and I don't feel good about this.
Right. Someone close to me passes away.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be like on that, maybe not a physical thing, but a deeper interior emotional experience where I'm feeling. I'm not feeling myself. Something's off.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's caused by something spiritual. So like some certain types of desolation are not spiritual in nature. Then there's the desolations that are spiritual in nature. Like I'm feeling really guilty and I am in need of confession because I have committed the following sins.
Right.
And when I have sinned, I feel far from God. And that's a moment of desolation. That's a moment of really feeling a deep sadness because of my sinfulness, because of those ways that I have fallen short of God's glory and God's goodness. And so I need something to change. We're going to experience often those places where we need to make the distinction. Is this a spiritual issue? Is this not a spiritual issue? And being given the constructs of consolation and desolation allows us to understand it's a broad category for describing the human experience. Narrowing it down to spiritual or non-spiritual allows us to understand, when is this something that's more about God and when is this something that's more about me and my humanity?
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when we do that, we're able to recognize, like, sometimes you get discouraged in prayer. I'm discouraged in prayer because I can't focus, right? And we start to feel like I'm in a state of desolation. And the reason is because I can't focus. But if we unpack, you can't focus. You can't really pay attention. Why is it? And you might notice that the reason I can't focus in prayer is because there's a lot of noise outside my window. Right. Ignatius writes about this experience. Actually, it's one of his really famous stories in his writings. He describes he had been discerning a question about the Society of Jesus and what they would do, and he had promised this novena of masses and like a particular set time for prayer that he was going to do, and he was going to make his decision on decision day. the day that he had set for himself as the day on which he would make his choice. He's getting ready for Mass, and while he's getting ready for Mass, there's voices in the hallway outside the sacristy, and he's distracted by the talking that's going on so close to the sacristy, and he wishes that it was quieter, and so he's irritated because it's not as quiet as he wants it to be when he's trying to recollect himself for Mass. And then there's noise outside on the street. And while he's trying to clear his head and get ready for Mass, there's these noises and it's distracting him, and he's upset by that. And he starts to think, you know what? All this noise, all these distractions, maybe I'm not ready to make the decision. Maybe I should do another novena. Maybe I should pray longer. This is also the last time the Jesuits knew what a novena was. Anyway, that's another really good joke. That's a really funny joke. Sorry, Jesuits, okay. We love you. Come on, that was good, right? That was good.
We're going to be calling out entire orders today, but
no, it's just making a joke about Jesuits, and those are always accepted. The Jesuits make Jesuit jokes. It's
yes,
great.
As they should, as is healthy to do, right?
So he gets into this place where he's like, well, maybe I will, maybe I'll make another novena. Maybe I'll pray longer, and I'll delay making this because I'm not ready right now because I'm so distracted. And he starts to realize, no, wait a second. These are just external things. This isn't God giving me an indication. This isn't like a change in what I've been experiencing in prayer. This is just a noise. This is just background stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he buckles down and he says, I'm going to go pray. And he goes to pray. He says Mass, and then he makes his decision. And the reality was, it was a decision that he had already made like a few days before.
Wow, right.
God had already given him the answer that he was looking for. But it was in this moment of feeling distracted. He was like, oh, all of a sudden everything's up in the air. I have no idea what I'm doing. And maybe I need to call everything into question. We can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've had all these spiritual moments where God has been pointing me in the right direction, but then on the day that something goes wrong and there's a traffic jam, there's some like I don't know, like I lose my keys,
right.
or we experience some setback materially, we start to think, well, maybe this isn't what God really wants. And this is where the Lord wants us to like make that distinction between spiritual and non-spiritual, so that you can understand that sometimes things go wrong, but that doesn't mean that God isn't present there. Right. So sometimes things go well, but that doesn't mean God is present.
Sure. Yeah. So I have so much that you've made me think of here. And I'm gonna bring forth every single one of them.
Great.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So what order do I want to do this? I'm gonna start with a very present theme in every conversation we've ever had: proper integration. Right. So, like, proper integration insofar as it has to do with awareness, right? So CP map is all about Catholic mindfulness, right? Or I suppose I don't know if it's all about it, but that's obviously a piece of it.
There's several other things that it's about.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But that's part of it. It's
right.
Important
So
part.
like this awareness, I think it's like I'm pretty sure Thomas Aquinas says that if self-awareness, self-knowledge is necessary for change. And well, we're not just necessarily discussing change, the ability to discern an external, non-spiritual consolation and or desolation, whichever it might be, versus a spiritual consolation or desolation, like that's so key to the discernment of anything else. Like, it seems to me, you know? And so like the ability to be aware of what's going on internally, and then I guess by extension externally to see what's actually impacting your interior life seems to be incredibly necessary. Now that attached to the discernment of vocation, right? So like marriage is a natural good, right? You go ahead and correct me where I begin straying, but it seems to me that the church's position is that marriage is a natural good that human beings are called to. And when someone is called to a vocation that is not marriage, whether it be religious life or the priesthood, but it's within the context of a vow of celibacy, that's because God's giving them a grace on top, like he's perfecting nature in a way. And so this natural inclination gets raised, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Marriage is a natural vocation.
Right. Okay. So
It
given
is how
that,
we are created. Yeah, like we are created for this. When we talk about marriage as a sacrament, what we're saying is this natural thing is being raised to a supernatural level.
okay.
God is
Okay.
giving to this natural state that we are created for. It's not so much that we're called to it, but that by our very nature, we're ordered in this way. So the ordering of the human person is ordered towards that self gift to another, for the propagation of the species, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Right. Yeah.
We're actually ordered in this way. So if we're ordered in that way, then we see that the sacrament of marriage is given so that this natural state is raised to something supernatural, is raised to a level that is higher, and is endowed with those particular blessings that are lost in the flood, that are lost in the fall. And then that marriage has always retained some of the things that are, this is from the nuptial blessing, that marriage has always retained some of those things that were not forfeited by original sin.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But now that by this sacrament, we're made aware of those things. Whereas somebody who's not called, who does not choose the path of marriage, who is called to a consecrated life, is being called to something that is supernatural of its very nature, not something that can be raised to a supernatural level. Like marriage as a sacrament raises the natural to a supernatural level,
see.
Whereas the celibate state, the consecrated life of a priest or of a religious, is something that is given by God to someone that calls them beyond the natural state and into a supernatural way of living. Now, the challenge obviously with that is that we human beings who are natural have to learn to live supernaturally, and sometimes have to overcome or struggle against or struggle with or struggle through, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but those natural tendencies that we have that in spite of the fact that we've been called to a supernatural state,
that's exactly where I'm going.
Our natural tendencies remain.
Yes, you have anticipated where I was going, which is like when you've got these non-spiritual consolations or desolation, how does that impact discernment? You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're talking about discernment of
like,
vocation,
what if you're called to the priesthood, but it's like, well, you know, that girl's pretty, you know what I mean?
I would say that's the normal process of discernment for every single man who's ever considered the priesthood ever.
Right.
And this is it, but it's a serious thing, right?
Yeah.
A young man starts thinking about the priesthood, and he's feeling called, and then a girl pays attention to him.
Right.
Well, that's normal. That's natural. And part of the question is not, is this good or bad? Because it's not a question of good or bad. It's a question of, yes, on a natural level, this is very good. But do I see in that relationship or in that attraction, in my capacity to recognize beauty, do I see in that God indicating something, or am I just a normal person who's capable of seeing what is beautiful?
Right.
And for like when a man's discerning the priesthood, he's got to sometimes make those distinctions. Sometimes it's not a question of just I'm capable of recognizing beauty. Sometimes it's this is the beauty that my heart desires. Like this is the place where I feel most myself, and I feel the presence of God most. When I am pursuing this beauty, and not just beauty broadly speaking, but like beauty applied to this woman. You met Renee, and at a certain point you realized I am most myself. I'm most alive when I'm serving her, when I'm loving her, when I'm pursuing her, when I'm in relationship with her, when I'm by her side. That's when I feel like I'm most who I am.
Yeah, and most who I am called to be, right? Like with John Paul II, he says, "Be who you are." Like we realized that we were growing in the Christian faith together, you know, and that that was bearing fruit in our lives and in lives of people around us through our relationship.
Right. Whereas like called to the priesthood, you start to realize these other relationships, as beautiful as they might be and good as they are, there is something in these relationships. There's something about this beautiful gift that I in fact don't feel is the reason God has created me. Though I can still see how beautiful and wonderful they are, though I can still appreciate them, you know?
Right.
It's great. Like I got to have dinner with some friends of mine yesterday. I've been friends with them for years. I did their wedding. I baptized some of their kids. One of their kids is my goddaughter. It's great. Like I love spending time with them. And they're mentoring a couple that's getting married.
Nice.
And sitting and talking with them, it was great. The reason I know my friend Emily is because I was introduced by a mutual friend of ours. I went to grammar school with this girl, and then in high school she met Emily, and so she introduced me and Emily. But the reason I was really hanging out with that group of friends wasn't even because of my friend from elementary school. It was because my friend from elementary school introduced me to this other girl, and I started dating her. Insofar as a 15-year-old dates, like I needed to ask my parents for rides to her house and stuff. And so it was pretty dumb. But like that was my girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Like high school girlfriend, and there I am. But it was really funny because as we're talking about the fact of how long we've known one another with this engaged couple, Emily said, "We used to call you Father Sam. Do you remember that?" I said, "Yeah, I do remember that." Because as a joke, they all thought that I would be a priest.
Right.
But it wasn't really a joke. It was sincere. The joke was that they would call me Father when obviously I was not yet a priest.
Yeah.
But they all saw something that I didn't see in myself.
Yeah.
Right. And that didn't change the fact that I had a relationship with this group of friends, or that I could appreciate them for being who they were, or that I could even want to spend time with them. It didn't take away any of that stuff. It was this different expression of it, this other thing that also helped me to realize there's more than just this relationship or that relationship. But it didn't make me hate any of that. It didn't make me despise that. And that's, I think, the key element here is you don't become, and this is way off topic of consolation and desolation, but you don't become a priest or a religious sister because you despise other people or because you're afraid of loving someone. You become a priest or a religious because God has given you this supernatural grace to see the beauty of the natural vocation to marriage and the beauty of how God makes that something supernatural. And even knowing that beauty, recognizing that beauty, appreciating it, and being able to interact with it, God has still called you to something else. And then you realize my priesthood would be so poor if it wasn't for these married couples. If it wasn't for these people, my goddaughter sat with me, and at one point, I don't know what happened, but she was upset. She's a little girl, right? So she's upset. She's 5 years old, 5 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And she was starting to cry, and she buried her head on my shoulder for a second. I put my arm around her and I said, "Hey, it's okay. This is how we learn. Sometimes we make mistakes, or sometimes things don't go okay." And she started to calm down, but I was realizing I'm learning something about fatherhood because of this relationship. Right. And here's something that's very natural. And this was not a supernatural moment. This was not a moment of God speaking to me through my goddaughter or anything like that. It was a very natural moment. This is a very non-spiritual moment, but it was deeply consoling. Right. And so when we can recognize there are certain things, this is happening on a natural level, this is not happening on a supernatural level, that helps us to understand where is God. And if things are happening on a natural level in a natural way, okay, that's really good. But we want to look for the supernatural. If we want to know where God's will is, if everything is just on this natural level or on this non-spiritual level, it doesn't mean that it's especially if it's consolation, it doesn't mean it's bad. But where is God? The converse is true too. Sometimes in that feeling of non-spiritual desolation, we get down and we're feeling very, very low. I think one of the perhaps one of the more common manifestations of non-spiritual desolation is actually depression.
Mm.
If we try to pray depression away and we think there's
Right.
exclusively a spiritual solution to this, we might really be off track.
Yeah.
Now, that does not mean that the only solution to depression is medication.
Right.
Is some sort of medical intervention. It's often a much more complicated thing, right? We know this, that dealing with something like depression could require medication, could require therapy, it could require going outside more, it could require sun exposure, it could require getting a better sleep schedule or eating habits. There's lots of different things that go into all of it. And spirituality is certainly a part of that, right? Like praying, even in those moments of real desolation, is part of it. But that might not be the only thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we start to learn these different patterns, these different things that we need to work through, and we come to a deeper understanding, a deeper appreciation for what's really going on. So in that, Ignatius presents consolation and desolation as tools for really discerning and understanding what's going on. One thing that he makes really clear, though, is that desolation is not the time to make a decision.
Yeah.
Desolation points you to something, but we wait for that time of consolation before we make a decision. And so he says, in a time of desolation, change nothing. Unless the behavior exhibited in the time of desolation is not praying.
Right.
If you are not praying, if you are not going to the sacraments during a time of desolation, do that.
Yeah.
Like start going to mass.
Right.
Start praying. Go to confession.
Right.
Like start praying every day. But otherwise, he says, don't change anything. So if you're in a state of desolation and you've been praying, so like I'm a priest, right? If I'm saying mass every day and I'm praying in my office and I'm praying the rosary and I'm making a holy hour and I'm still experiencing this desolation, that doesn't mean I should quit. I should stop doing those things. One of the big temptations, you try to make a holy hour every day and you start getting distracted while you're praying. So you think, I'll come back later when I'm not distracted, right? No, finish the holy hour.
Yeah.
And if the holy hour is a distracted holy hour, deal with the fact that you had a distracted holy hour.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
You don't change the method entirely just because of that.
Yeah, I mean, by analogy, maybe no, not analogy, by comparison. Like I can only pray in some kind of like isolated way if I get up earlier than I want to, you know? And so like every single morning, my prayer begins with me being more tired than I'd like to be, you know? And it's like, well, that would be, I would imagine, like, that seems to me that it falls under the category of non-spiritual desolation, right? I wake up, I'm tired, and I say, well, you know what? I'm just going to pray anyway. Because I'm not gonna not pray. Like, that can't be the right answer, you know?
Exactly. And this is where, like, sometimes we realize the solution is not, like, fix everything.
Yeah.
It's do things anyway, even when they don't change immediately. There was remember
I feel
the
like the timing of my yawn
bracelets?
was pretty good there, just for the record.
That was good, yeah. You know, the WWJD bracelets, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
There was another one that was popular when I was a kid, and it was push. And PUSH stood for pray until something happens. And
nice.
I think back on that now and I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's like pretty good advice.
Sometimes slogan spirituality is a dangerous place to go.
Yeah.
When your entire frame of reference is does this fit on a bumper sticker? Yeah, exactly. You might be on the wrong track.
Yeah.
There was like the other big one was no Jesus, no peace. N-O Jesus, N-O peace. And then no Jesus, no peace. K-N-O-W Jesus, K-N-O-W peace.
That one I'm familiar with.
And like that's great, but there's a like bumper sticker spirituality, slogan spirituality. It doesn't really work.
No.
In the long run, those
unless you're doing some kind of
sayings.
Exegesis of the Gospel of Matthew and figuring out that the ancestry of Christ somehow boils down to the letters DVD and it's pointing you towards. Whoa!
Yeah,
even Saint Matthew did slogan spirituality. I'm kidding.
Yeah, but these things like they can be helpful, but
yeah, definitely.
Like we've got to take that deeper step. So like
Definitely.
looking at what is consoling, what is a moment of desolation or a thing that is not giving me much in the way of consolation, but like Ignatius says, persevere through the desolation. And so that's where the desolation becomes training.
Yeah.
Because that's where you learn the discipline of praying even when it seems like nothing is happening.
Right.
I pray even when I don't feel anything. I pray even when I'm not feeling happy. I go to mass even when to use the cliche phrase, I get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna do this because I know that there's something else happening, even when I can't feel it, even where my emotional experience or my intellectual experience is missing something. I'm still going to engage, and then by persevering through the desolation, we're able to get to that place where, in consolation, we can know and understand what it is that God wants us to do.
It also speaks to the importance of order. I don't know if you listened to the Pints of Aquinas episode with Tammy Peterson. But
no, I haven't.
Yeah, she was on, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that, And she talked about how she and her husband, Jordan Peterson, would do 1 to 2 date nights a week, which I was impressed by. And the way that they would do it is they each knew like their role. And so he would... it seemed to me that a lot of times their date nights actually were at home because they had a young baby, right? So like, at least at this point in the story she's talking about, I don't know their entire date life. That would be weird. But she talks about like he would set the room up. I thought it was pretty funny that her role was that she would go and take a bath and get ready and calm down. I thought that was great. But like they each knew what to do, and then she actually talks about how. I think it was during COVID, right? During 2020, she and Jordan Peterson were each very sick. And so they saw each other very rarely for like 3 years. And it blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh, they did like to not see your spouse for that long. And she says, and so we kind of like got to see each other and we were like, what she says is they said to each other, like, and internally, I wonder if that thing we had is still exists, in reference to their relationship. And she said, and the thing we did is, well, let's do a date night, And because they had built this system and this order, they knew how to do it. And their date night, actually, she said they always danced. That's what they did. They would set the room up, then they would dance to music together. And so they did that. And through that system, they were able to do the date night, have a dance, and then they were like, oh, our relationship is still there, And then she drew the analogy to the rosary, which is the rosary is this kind of ordered prayer whereby, well, if something chaotic happens in life, like, you know what to do. And so I was very moved by this idea of consistency in prayer, right? Which is like what we're saying, in moments of desolation, keep praying. In moments of consolation, keep praying. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like, well, when, for lack of a better way of saying it, when the crap hits the fan, it's like, well, now you know what to do. Right. Not like nothing changes. You maintain, and you will find that thing that was there in the moment of consolation is still there, even if it quote unquote feels different. So yeah, this conversation just made me think about the importance of order, which is like human formation. Are you good for me to bring up The Chosen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I am way behind on The Chosen, so it's true. I do know how the story ends.
You know how the story ends.
This isn't even the end of the book.
This is just a scene, okay? It's just a scene.
So I suppose in terms of storyline, is there something that you're going to reveal that I
Not
don't already
really.
know? Probably not.
Not really.
Probably not.
No.
But in
But we'll
terms of
say
like
it.
artistic expression, is there something that might get
Yes,
spoiled for me?
100%.
Yeah, probably.
Spoiler alert.
I'm yeah. Look, if it was a story that I didn't already know relatively well,
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm an expert, but
Mhm.
I think in a court of law I could be registered as an expert.
Yes, I
In my
agree.
testimony. You know,
Yeah.
I know
I would
know
also just say
enough.
that you've spoiled at least one or two movies on this show for me, so this is a little bit of revenge.
Good. Okay, I accept. I
All
accept
right.
my just penalty.
That's right. That's right. Um, so there's a scene in it's season 5 I mean it's been out for a while now. It was in theaters. Now it's on Amazon Prime, which is pretty cool. They're
Yeah, I
pulling
think
in
I'm on
some.
like season 3, so
Yeah.
don't worry.
So season
I'm
5.
way behind, shamefully behind,
They're in
and
Holy
that's why
Week
Jonathan
now.
Romy. That's why Jonathan Romy won't come on the show.
That we haven't asked yet.
Also, that.
But they're in Holy Week now, and Jesus cleanses the temple in this particular episode.
Okay.
And I just wanted to share with you how moved I was by this scene. And I think it's because I was talking to some friends about this the other day. You know, like we grew up in so Aquinas talks about how the sense of sight is the most powerful sense, right? It has I mean, anybody and their mother could tell you how much of an influence the sense of sight has on people, you know? But I think that we as like the last, like, I don't know, for the last like 50, 60 years, we've been particularly susceptible to it in both positive and negative ways because of new media, right?
Mhm.
And so seeing The Chosen is like can be an incredibly powerful experience, right? Because when like, you know, I get to watch Jesus's life, you know, the story of Jesus's life. And in this particular scene of the cleansing of the temple, Jonathan Rumi, I think, does an amazing job of portraying the zeal that Christ has for his Father's house.
Hmm.
And one of the ways that he does that is it's also through the writing, like Dallas Jenkins and his fellow writers, I think, do a great job. And Jesus cleanses the temple and he is visibly angry, you know, and it's like maybe it's just because of the tendency to want to soften Jesus, you know, which
Mhm.
I'm not saying is like the only thing I do. I think I also sometimes tend to harden Jesus, you know, like so it depends
Yeah.
on the mood. Depends on if I'm feeling any non-spiritual desolation or not. But am I hungry? But so like the zeal he portrays in this scene is amazing, and the thing that he like repeats a couple of times is you know, he's going around and he is like flipping tables and like you know, cracking his whip, and he just keeps saying, "This is my Father's house. What are you doing to my Father's house?" And I was like, it impacted me, like I didn't necessarily anticipate it, but I was so moved by the love of Jesus for the Father, like
Mm.
his desire to defend the Father. Um, and so that got me thinking about zeal and the need for zeal for the Christian, and I suppose somewhat introspectively recognizing in myself both sometimes a lack of zeal whereby I will not be moved by things, and then sometimes potentially like an overzealousness. And so here are the two examples I'll give you. I recently came across a clip from an Apple TV show starring John Hamm. It's the most recent one. I don't know what the name of the show is. He plays a thief in this show. And there was a clip that I saw on Instagram where John Hamm and another character in this TV show break into a church, break into the tabernacle, and feed each other the Eucharist while dipping it in jam. And he like pretends to absolve this woman of her sin. And he says, you know, the body of Christ. And I saw this clip on Instagram, and like I didn't have a visceral reaction to it, you know?
Mm.
And so I recognized in myself like almost like a certain numbness to what is almost certainly like falls under the category of sacrilege. Now, I'm not saying it was truly the Eucharist, but like I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's blasphemy. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? But like, they're making fun of the
what you've
Eucharist.
just done though is, you've just told me I'm not going to watch that show.
Yeah, right. And I haven't. You know?
Yeah, but like whatever, like I've not heard of this show. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't pay any attention to that. Like I have absolutely no desire. If I ever find out the name of this show, it will simply like tell me what I have no desire for. Yeah. I have no desire to see so that. Like, that's like a deeply offensive thing.
Right. And so that's my point. It's
and
like,
I don't want to see that.
Like it was through this, I don't remember the name of the Instagram account, but they had a link to where you could send a letter to, one of those like online petitions to Apple and various members. And like, I filled it out, you know what I mean? But like my initial reaction to it, like I did not feel anything. And I was surprised by that almost. And so like, I recognized, okay, well, maybe there's a case where I need more zeal, but to counterbalance it, I would say like, I think that there is a tendency, now here's what I'm not saying. I learned this in class, that when you grow in different stages of prayer, there is a particular stage where like maybe someone falls into the, maybe they sermonize a lot, and one of the ways that, our Lord can, I don't want to say purge you of that, but like he basically like, he helps you draw back from that. You start focusing more on loving other people than sermonizing them. And so I know that like a piece of this comes from zeal, like, and a passion for the faith, that like, I want to tell people about it, but also recognizing that's not always the correct move. Like fraternal charity and fraternal correction is not always like, well, did you know that in this piece, you know what I mean? Like, and telling someone about something, but rather like, maybe praying or fasting or just like loving on them, however is necessary, And so I guess what I'm saying is like, zeal is this interesting thing where like any other virtue, it lies in the middle, and I want to discuss where the middle is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this particular example, so like to make it really specific to the thing that you're talking about, and then to expand it more generally. Yeah. I think this is one of those examples of like, this is something that's not good on TV or on a subscription service, right? But we also live in an era where we're kind of addicted to like the manufactured outrage.
Yeah.
Like I'm supposed to get mad about everything that happens all the time, everywhere.
Sure.
And I can't. I don't have the energy for that.
Yeah. Who's got the emotional capacity for endless rage?
Like why should I just always be angry? That's not helping me. And it's also not changing any minds or hearts.
Right.
So maybe instead of always being
except
annoyed
potentially mine in the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of always being annoyed or angry about stuff, maybe I'm just going to say, that's bad. I don't like it. And not pay any more attention to it. And like, I'm not going to tell people to go and watch this thing because I don't think it's good. I think it's bad. So it won't get my recommendation. If I hear somebody saying, oh, I really want to watch this, I might tell them, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And that's where my zeal is going to come out to say like, actually, I want to protect you from this. Or I think that these ideas or this portrayal is so repugnant, is so morally offensive, is so spiritually offensive that actually I don't think that you should be exposed to it. That's a zeal for that person.
Yeah.
But do I need to feel like I have to be up in arms and that's zeal?
Yeah,
no, that's more the response of like I need to be outraged. I need to always be in this state of being somehow angry enough that I'll do something about it. But like we just passed the parable of the Good Samaritan in the Gospel on Sunday, right? And the thing about the Good Samaritan that's great is he doesn't have any other preoccupations that prevent him from doing something. He gets off his donkey and he goes over and he helps the man because the man is in need. Full stop. That's it. Yeah. Like he's not worried about the other stuff that he's supposed to do. So the priest and the Levite pass by because they have to be concerned about ritual purity. They can't come in contact with a corpse or with blood. And in order for them to participate in the Sabbath worship, they have to be ritually pure. And that's their preoccupation is I have to have this other thing. We all have some ritual purity that we're trying to we're preoccupied by. And that ritual purity might be my work schedule. It might be the amount of homework that I have. It might be the other obligations that I have to like go to this thing or that thing. And that's why I can't do this, or that's why I can't stop, or that's why I can't do these things. But sometimes the ritual purity that we're consumed by, especially in like a social media age, is I have to publicly demonstrate the right amount of this stuff. Whereas the real thing that needs to happen is I need to go and like, I need to be the good Samaritan. Sometimes I'm doing that for myself, right? Like the good Samaritan is needed not in being angry about the content of the show, but in turning it off.
Yeah.
Like the good Samaritan picks up the remote and hits off.
Yeah.
Don't watch this. This isn't good for you. Right. Or sometimes the good Samaritan says, I can participate in all the outrage. I can sign the petition. I can send in my letter. But then I also still have a personal responsibility to do things. So like maybe in a situation like that, the zeal comes out like, yeah, I'll send the letter.
Yeah.
I'll sign the petition. I agree that this is an offensive depiction of the Eucharist. This is in media doing something that is like, this is deeply offensive to a Catholic. This is offensive to Catholic sensibilities. Yeah, I see that. But you know what else is offensive is not just that there's this depiction. It's that this is what Jesus himself endures all the time. And that's the reason why we make reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. When Jesus appears to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, he shows her his heart and he says, behold this heart which has so loved men, but from the greater part receives nothing but indifference in return. Right? There are blasphemies committed against the Sacred Heart of Jesus, against the Eucharist, that have nothing to do with media depictions. There's the indifference that people show towards the Eucharist, towards the way that they receive. There's all this stuff. So maybe I go and I make a holy hour instead. Maybe that's where my zeal comes out, is I go and I do that. So when we look at zeal, zeal is not only expressed in the words that we speak, broadly speaking. Like if I'm looking at zeal on that big level, zeal is with what fervor do I carry out my responsibilities, and with what fervor do I proclaim the kingdom in my field of mission.
Say that one more time.
So with what fervor do I proclaim the kingdom? With what fervor do I proclaim the gospel within my field of mission? There are some places I'm not called to go.
Yeah.
Like I'm not called to go down to the New York Stock Exchange and stand on the trading floor and proclaim the gospel.
Yeah.
And it would not be zealous for me to go and do that because, first of all, God hasn't called me there. That's not the place where God is. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be somebody else's field of mission and therefore a valid expression of their zeal, but it's not what God has called me to.
Yeah.
The fact that I don't do that doesn't mean that I'm not zealous. I got stopped. I was at I was pumping gas. All right. I had my Roman collar on. I'm standing at my car pumping gas, and this guy at the pump next to mine looks at me and he says, "You wearing a cross?" And I said, "Yes, I'm wearing a cross." He says, "Why isn't it showing?" And he gave me the finger and he got in his car and he drove away. And
no way.
And I was like, this is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me.
What does that even mean?
I am dressed as a Catholic priest and he's questioning my zeal for the gospel because I'm not wearing a visible crucifix.
Yeah, that's weird.
This is a little, and I realized, okay, that's a misplaced understanding of what zeal for the gospel is really about.
Yeah.
Right? And so the zeal is about how do I carry out my responsibilities. Now, there's also like a danger of thinking that just because somebody is trying to do what they're supposed to do, that they're overzealous. Like this is a real danger that, quite frankly, a lot of bishops fall into with their priests, because bishops don't like getting complaints. And I appreciate that about bishops, right? They don't want their priest to be complained about.
Yeah.
So a priest does the thing that he's supposed to do.
Why would they want that?
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough,
but
right?
this is a pretty common thing that happens. A priest does the thing that he was taught to do in the seminary. He celebrates Mass according to the rubrics. That's simple. He doesn't do anything crazy, but he celebrates Mass according to the rubrics. And because he won't violate the rubrics, somebody complains and says he's too formal about everything.
Yeah.
And the bishop comes in and says, I don't want you to be overzealous about things.
Yeah.
And he tries to temper the good and healthy zeal of his priest,
right,
because he doesn't want the complaints.
Yeah.
Other times you could have a priest who is overzealous,
mm-hmm.
right? Like famously, there are these stories of priests who in their homilies talk about things that are not appropriate to talk about because there's children present.
Yeah.
But they get into these topics and they get graphic, or they get into things that like,
right.
hey, this, it's not
Time
that you're wrong about
right.
the moral theology that you're teaching here is accurate. It's correct. But you've picked the wrong audience. Like the children's mass is not the place to have the talk about contraception. Maybe,
Yeah.
Though I can appreciate your zeal, it's a misplaced zeal.
Yeah.
We've got to temper that, right? And so it's not a question of is zeal present or not. It's a question of zeal does not always look like flipping over tables. Zeal for the Father's house that consumes me is not necessarily I'm making a whip out of cords and going in and doing this. Now,
I would like to go on the public record and say that I've never personally made a whip. I just want to say that. I'm talking about being overzealous.
Likewise.
And, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying.
Yeah. But like there are times when zeal actually demands that you do something. Like
right.
Sometimes zeal for God, zeal for the gospel demands your swift, visible action. Sometimes it requires even like what Jesus is doing when you say that he's visibly angry, it's righteous anger. This is the other thing that's really important to remember. Like that zeal is coming out expressed as a righteous anger.
Totally.
Anger is a natural emotion that we can have, that we're all capable of.
Yeah.
But anger can be misdirected. Anger can be sinful. But righteous anger means that we're angry for the right reason about the right things, and we are expressing it in a way that is actually ordered to the good.
Yeah.
Ordered to transformation. Right.
So I'm gonna I want to spoil something so bad, Father. If you let me, I will. Okay. So
I'll allow it.
In this particular episode, like one of the things that occurs is some of the disciples are going to sacrifice at the temple, and they run into two Jew groups of disciples run into two different what's the word? People selling at the market, vendors. Way to go, Matt. And one of the vendors is clearly incredibly greedy. You know, like he's taking advantage of the tax for changing currencies, and one of the other vendors actually gives them these two doves to the disciples for free because one of the disciples reminds him of his family, and he's doing this to support his family, right? And Jesus, destroys both booths anyway. And it was this maybe in peace it impacted me because like I work in evangelization, like I have a salary, but it's like, well, why are you doing this? Are you doing it for the sake of the kingdom? Like, which is not the same thing as saying like, well, there's no place for being able to buy food. You know what I mean? Like I'm not staking a claim there, I think the Lord is happy I can provide for my family. But the point is that like this guy was both people, regardless of level of friendliness and kindness toward the pilgrims and whatnot, right, were turning the temple into a den of thieves by making it so impossible for certain people to worship God in the courtyard because it had turned into a place of buying and selling almost exclusively, particularly in this portrayal, right? And so I was just like, I was so moved by the way that they wrote this, but especially that juxtaposition, You
could have somebody who's like, they're a liar and a cheat, but they're still capable of doing good things.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they are not guilty of lying and cheating just because they said this one time, I'll give you a deal.
Yeah. Right? So it was powerful.
Yeah.
It was powerful.
Yeah. The other part is like people will say this, like, sometimes people think that priests get into this because of the power or the prestige. And I'm like, if this is what power and prestige looks like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't do this for the money.
Yeah.
I definitely, like, the salary is not enough to make this like the reason. And the power, like, what power? Really, what really, power?
What power? Yeah.
Honestly, do you think that there's that much power? There's really not. I think the only place you
have a
would
1 in 100,000 chance of becoming the Pope, Father Sam.
Have you checked with the Vegas bookmakers about that?
Yeah, you could be the second American Pope, Father Sam.
Yeah, I'm number 2.
Yeah,
yay!
Yeah.
No, but like, I think the only way you could really think that this is a position of power or some kind of prestige is like you'd have to be a real sociopath. And that's just super dangerous. And I'm like, no, that's not why we do this. This, like, zeal, true zeal has to be the reason. But when we can cultivate zeal in a good way, and when we can recognize what is zeal versus being a zealot, right? Like, a zealot is sort of addicted to the feeling of enthusiasm that zeal brings. And so a zealot can often exaggerate what their zeal is, and that bleeds into these other places. Like,
and it seems to me
zeal.
That the zealot doesn't know meekness. If meekness is control,
right. I want to have zeal for my Father's house. I want to have zeal for the gospel, but I don't want that zeal to get in the way. And there are plenty of times when my zeal has been expressed more for my sake. I want to seem zealous. Plenty of times when I have demonstrated that zeal in a sermonizing way, and in a way that's meant to just get people to notice how serious I am about this, as opposed to actually winning souls for Christ. I have to repent of that.
Father Sam, I'm going to have to listen back to this episode to learn from it.
I'm pretty sure I have already repented of those things, but just in case I haven't, here I repent. I'll bring it to confession too, just to make sure. But anyway, that's the gift, though. There's maybe one last thing here. There's a great line in an Avett Brothers song. I love the Avett Brothers, even if I don't always agree with everything that they write about. There's some real beauty in a lot of the things that they write, and one of them is, I want to have pride like my mother has, and not like the kind in the Bible that turns you bad. Right? There's pride that's properly ordered, recognizing what is good and being grateful for it, being enthused about it, and wanting to hold out what is good for others to see.
Yeah.
And then there's pride that turns the goodness and those wonderful things and makes it about myself.
Yeah.
That's the pride that makes me bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to take these good things and make them about myself. And that's where zeal has to be about promoting the gospel, not about promoting myself, so that people can see how enthusiastic I am.
And if zeal is in the context of fraternal charity, then what needs to be the lens? Charity.
Yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Like it's all got to flow through the lens of love. Because if you're not loving, like, what does St. Paul say, right? Like, if I get a faith to move mountains, if I don't have love, I'm nothing. I gotta have a golden tongue, right? If I don't have love, what is it? My words are a ringing gong. So it's like, it's like you gotta. This is that has to be the lens. So
that's it.
All right, cool. Well, I think that the slavery to sin, slaves of God, Romans 6 is for another episode. This feels
that sounds great to me.
Yeah, this feels like a good place to stop, and maybe we'll get to that at another time. Well, thanks for teaching me this week, Father Sam. I know I said that I wouldn't interrupt you while you teach, and then proceeded to do so several times. So I apologize for
repeatedly. That. Yeah, no, it's just part of how this works.
Yes. You signed up for me to be your co-host. It's your fault. No.
Yep.
Somehow interrupts and blames you.
Accurate. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. All right, man. Thanks. This is great.
Oh yeah, it was my pleasure. I will
talk to you soon.
See you next week. Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Thanks for watching today's video. Let us know what you thought down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.